This is DJRF, and you're listening to Country Lunch on WOOL 91.5 FM from Bellows Falls, Vermont. Continuing our interview here with Paleo Mountain Man and Budcat 7.
Well, there's a lot to it, and I think not just the images, the way they're built, they're lined up to a certain direction. They geoform the land. They're built technically. You can see by the placement of the quartz. Certain types of stone are certain in certain places.
Strategic places, right? They inserted a lot of the quartz and the crystal into strategic places in the wall. And your wall there, Jimmy, the one that's on top, right outside, on the peak of the mountaintop where you're living at or whatever, that wall right there just has an incredible story in it. I mean, as you walk down the wall, there's just so much going on in there. I can only think that your wall there contains a whole complete story from start to finish over there. And that's one of the most elaborate walls that we've seen anywhere, right? Even up on Mount Ephraim and other places, we didn't see anything quite as elaborate as what you have there on your property.
No, well, I think it's special. And there's a reason I'm here looking at it. I mean, I've always felt like the wall called me, not to do anything except to tell its story and to take care of it. It sort of said, places like this need a caretaker, a sacred place, and it is a sacred site. And all the things that are here, all the objects are still here, and nothing's left the place. The only thing that's leaving the place are the images and the knowledge that's here. And I think that the people that were here want the knowledge out because it's important. Maybe this is the time for it to come out. And maybe I accidentally came here, but my story is as an artist. And many years ago, I used to use stones for healing. Friends used to come to me, and I'd use stones, and it would take care of their needs. And I used to tell people that there are powers, different powers that can help you. And I didn't know any of this for myself personally. It took me a long time to heal myself from terrible things. But the knowledge that there's a power out there, there's an understanding, there's a balance, there's a geometry to the world, the earth, and the stars and the heavens, it seems to balance your own psyche out to where you can actually think straight. And once you think straight, you can actually straighten yourself out, and it helps. Everything helps, and that's why I think these people were benevolent people. They were trying to do good things. I don't think they were warlike people. I don't think they were cannibals. I think they were benevolent. I think they did wonderful things. They watched the stars. They were probably very good at it, and they built wonderful things. I mean, come on, look at the beautiful wall, the serpent wall with all the different types of stones.
Your wall there is certainly an amazing wall. I mean, you have the spiral in there, you have the serpent in there, you have the guy climbing through the wall over there, and a whole host of other things that are in that wall over there. Just tells a story. And I think the ability to read the walls was lost way back in time, and we're only just rediscovering it again. And have you watched Brian Gigliotti's videos, Jimmy? The recent ones that he just put up?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, there's evidence in there. I mean, I saw in a couple of the shoots that he did, it looked to me like there were messages in that area, Connecticut, that he was looking at as well, the way that the stones were placed.
Well, geographically,
and it's very interesting, your concept about, the healing power of the stone, the healing power. We know today, I mean, especially with the New Age type health concerns with crystals being, having healing energy, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's interesting. I was listening to Coast last night, George Norrie's show there, and they had a guest on who was saying about the terra preta. Now, the terra preta is this mix of soil that's found in the Americas and elsewhere in the world, where the author there was saying that this was engineered soil. And not only was it engineered soil, but it also had an electrical quality to it. So it's just interesting that he said this about this engineered soil. And from what you showed me up there, Jimmy, by your property, the cleared area right in front, I guess that was formerly a growing area, or, you know, a farmer's field, or, you know, obviously the native peoples used that to grow their crops. And when you dug up the soil there, it seemed to me that this was an example of this terra preta that archaeologists and anthropologists are talking about all around the world, this engineered soil. We're talking about people who had amazing knowledge in agriculture, and your property up there shows evidence of this terra preta. So this electrical quality that this author was describing to her when researchers investigated this thing.
There's also a lot of quartz stone in that earth. It's mixed into it. If you took every shovelful out of there, you'd be pulling out pieces of quartz. And a lot of them, most of them, are carved quartz artifacts of some type or another. People would, I don't know why they were all left there, and so many of them. And it's a question I go through. Did they come here? Did they make them and leave them for a reason? And I think so. There's little outcrops of quartz on the mountain where you find small objects like that look like they've been left there in a perfect spot, in a perfect place. And
well, see, that goes right in line with what I'm saying with the terra preta, because much of this terra preta was created with pottery sherds. So they created this. We know that they created beautiful pottery. We know that from the archaeology and the anthropology, that they created all this beautiful pottery with all kinds of geometric designs and animal figures on it and flowers and other things. You know, we know that they had this beautiful, and it was painted, some of it too, but they broke so much of this pottery. They made so much of it and broke it up, and it was added to the soil. Part of the pottery itself has qualities to it that retain moisture. And the reason why they were engineering this soil is because the quality of the soil, as we know from current farming techniques, we know that the soil gets used up after a few years, and you have to either do rotation farming or you have to add stuff to the soil. I mean, they say that if we didn't add the fertilizers to all the soil here in the United States on the farms that we have, if we didn't add fertilizer, nothing would grow there. There's just no nutrients in the soil. But these people from thousands and thousands of years, tens of thousands of years in the past, were able to engineer this types of soil and use it in the places where they had poor soil conditions, and they often used the pottery sherds, broken pottery.
That's interesting because
add to the soil by they can't even, like, square miles of this stuff that you can't even believe, hundreds of square miles of this. So
it's
as
interesting,
you say, where
Dave,
find a lot of quartz in the soil. This is the medium that they used up here in the Northeast instead of using pottery shards, although there's other places in America where they did use the pottery. But up in the Northeast, there it seems that they used a lot of quartz.
I think the quartz energized the soil, and they put it around the roots of the plant. And when you put a seedling in or a plant in, what happens is the root will go down, and it likes to go under a stone because that's where it'll find moisture. It goes under the stone, and it goes around it. And trees do that also. You can have a giant oak tree that when it was a seedling, the first thing it did was put its first root down. It looks like a little serpent, and it circles a stone, and it grows, and that stone becomes part of that tree. It goes up into the tree. It absorbs a lot of these stones. And if you're planting crops and you put these stones around the crops and in the ground, the roots go to these, and it's just a natural way of growing. It's a fertilizer, and that's exactly what it is. It's a fertilizer, and you can use quartz in different ways, but if you use it that way, and you think of soil, and you think of earth, and you think of growing, it's just another energy source for the plant, and it's a beneficial source. And I know it because I've used it a lot. And you can build a small mound, circle it with stones, stone touching stone, touching other mounds, and you line them up in certain ways, and it's beneficial to the whole garden itself. The same way they built walls in certain places and mounds in certain places. And talk about the way they engineered earth, the burial mounds that they made. You don't find even small plants growing on them.
No.
The trees grow around them. It's the strangest thing. Trees go around them. If you clear off the top, you'll find that just the leaves had fallen on them, and if you rub your finger on the top of it, it's just a sandy soil. It's not even sandy. It's gritty. It's not a black soil. It's not an earthy soil. It's
well,
different.
They obviously had the engineering skills. So part of those engineering skills was creating a medium to build the mounds with. A lot of the soils involved with the mounds have a lot of clay in it. So naturally clay is a little bit harder and, retains its shape a little bit better. So it's just part of the knowledge that they had with their engineering skills, not only to terraform the land, but, to engineer certain building materials and growing mediums. So you can see just by that alone the level of intelligence that these people had.
They were brilliant.
And as a matter of fact, the fellow on Coast to Coast was saying that we're trying to imitate those practices today. We can't get it exactly right. So it's funny that you say a lot of these places things will not grow again, and often in also these cleared areas as well. That things don't seem to grow in these cleared areas as well as other areas. So obviously part of the maintenance of the soil was the burning. So they had to add the carbon to the soil. So an essential part is the engineered soil, engineered growing medium is great, but you had to constantly add to it on an annual basis the carbon material to it. So that hence the burning. Once they burned and add the carbon to the medium there, it sort of perked it up or whatever. And this is what the researcher was saying last night about this terra preta.
That's almost that's science, but it's almost a ritual also. The ritual of carbon, of burning.
It's probably both. Like I often say, it's their reasons for things are manifold. It's just like. We make a chair to sit in, but they made a chair to not only sit in, but to emulate their mythology, to be, positioned correctly in the correct energy line and astronomical. There's
balance.
There's manifold meanings to everything that they did. Whereas today we only do that with some things. Obviously, we can see that.
That's possibly because they were different than us, different types of human beings, different types of humanoids.
Their perspective, and their comprehension of reality is just going to be different than ours. They were different people.
They had a tendency to put it down in art too.
Their size, right?
They had a tendency
so
to
your perception of
do
things is
artwork,
going to be
and they were thinkers. They were creators. They were craftsmen. And they did it really well. I mean, to cut a piece of quartz into a face of whoever you were cutting it into or shaping it into and making it work without destroying the other side of it, which made into another face or an animal. It took a lot of science and technique and ability and craftsmanship and knowledge to do that. You don't just do that. You don't just do that. And it might have taken 1, 2, 10, 1,000 generations. I don't know, but they did accomplish it, and they did do it. And you can see that they saw in the world a balance. They saw beauty. They saw relationships between the earth and the stars, the relationships between how you did things, not just why you did them or when you did them, but how you did them. Like planting a garden, and the way you did it and the intention you put in it helps the fertility of it. And if you start thinking like that, you'll see a lot easier what they were doing when they were building their big megaliths and things like that. If you think
these people were more advanced.
We have to go in a minute.
What they're more advanced than what we are able to perceive out of what they did in the past. So they had more advanced ways about them and intelligence about them that's actually could be perceived by just looking simply at a stone wall. As you and I always say, how many people walk by a stone wall and don't even pay attention to it? They don't notice it. They don't really see it.
Well, maybe they will now.
But now, because of us, I think a lot more people are taking a couple of steps back and they're contemplating it for a longer time and looking at this thing and realizing that these people were more intelligent and their society was much more complex than what you could glean from it in just a momentary glance. You really have to look at these things to think about these things, and that's why they built the walls. I mean, like any sort of art form, you sort of have to contemplate it. It's not, you don't just look at it for a second and don't think about it. You have to contemplate what's being said there.
Let me cut in here. You can't see the forest through the trees. Like
That's
today,
right.
we can't see what we were talking about last week with all this. We can't see very far into the heavens or outer space these days, but they could. And I'm gonna break in here for do some PSAs and a commercial break and save this song. And just for the listeners out there, you can learn more by going to Paleo Mountain Man. Am I right?
Yep.
And Stonewall Research Budcat 7 on on YouTube, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, I want to do a break right here. We'll be right back with the interview in just a second.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. And let me see. Well, this is RF, and you're listening to Country Lunch on WOOL